The American Story, The Beginnings, by David Barton and Tim Barton, as read by Karl Hirsch. The American Story highlights some of the interesting moments and people that reveal God's providence in America. We have a fascinating history that must be remembered and passed on to future generations.
Section 2, the Colonial Period. Chapter 1, Pennsylvania, 1682, as well as Chapter 2, Georgia, 1732. Just as Christianity was central to the planting of the first American colonies, it was equally evident in the founding of the latter colonies. Consider, for example, the colony of Pennsylvania, which was founded by William Penn. William grew up in England as the son of Admiral William Penn, who was knighted for courageous service to the king. The young Penn, coming from this high station in life, was able to study at Christ Church College, one of several colleges within Oxford University. This was a school that only members of the Anglican Church, the official state church of England, could attend. During his time at college, William and some of his fellow students became interested in the teachings of George Fox. Fox advocated a much simpler expression of Christian faith without the pomp and ceremony of the state church. His followers, commonly known as Quakers, refused to submit to certain state-decreed Anglican theological tenets and practices. Many of the students at the college, including Penn, openly revolted against the college's stiff and inflexible Anglican formality. Penn's father angrily removed William from school and sent him to France, where he became popular at the royal court. His father eventually recalled him to England, where he made a similarly favorable impression on English royalty. As a result of these new high-level political activities, his former religious interests slowly fell away. After Penn began the study of law and then participated in a military skirmish, he encountered a Quaker teacher that he had followed in college, and once again became conscious of his spiritual condition. Penn returned to Fox's teachings and, as a result, converted to Quakerism. William began attending Quaker meetings, but was arrested for violating the oppressive Conventicle Act. This law prohibited non-Anglican conventicles, that is, groups of people who gather for religious service or worship. England forbade any religious gatherings of more than 5 people unless it was an Anglican gathering. Still having some social standing as a result of his father's position, Penn petitioned for his freedom and was released from prison. He began writing religious works promoting the simplicity of nonconformist theology, but for doing so, the Anglican Bishop of London had him arrested again. He was imprisoned in the Tower of London for 8 months until several influential political persons intervened on his behalf, freeing him once more. Penn continued his religious activities, including street preaching about Quaker beliefs. Arrested yet again, he pled his case at trial for religious liberty, and the jury acquitted him. The presiding judge was so infuriated with the jury's not guilty verdict that he fined and imprisoned the jurors, denying them food, water, and warmth. Fortunately, the judge's decision was appealed to a higher court, which upheld the jury's verdict. This helped establish in English law that a decision by a jury was more powerful than a decision by a judge. This belief was held sacred by America's founding fathers and was later enshrined in the Bill of Rights, guaranteeing to every citizen the right to a trial before a jury of his or her peers. Penn continued attending Quaker meetings and writing theological essays, and repeatedly went to jail for doing so. In 1677, he began helping Quakers move to the American colonies, where they could experience far more religious liberty than they could in England. In 1681, following the death of Penn's father, King Charles II gave William the land between New York and Maryland to repay a financial debt the king owed the elder Penn. The king named the land Pennsylvania in honor of the admiral. Penn accepted the land and went to America. But, understanding that the land was actually not the king's to give, he proceeded to purchase tracts of land from the Indians. He even purchased some of the same land multiple times because different tribes claimed the same property, having taken and retaken it from others in conquest. Penn ensured that he secured a clear title from each tribe that claimed it. The local natives had great respect for Penn. In fact, an early American encyclopedia noted, quote, "The influence of Penn was so great among the Indians that to be a follower of his was at all times a passport to the Indians, protection and hospitality," end quote. And historian George Bancroft pointed out that in earliest years of colonial America, quote, "not a drop of Quaker blood was ever shed by an Indian," end quote. While Pennsylvania was established as a Quaker colony, it fully protected the rights of religious expression and religious conscience for everyone. All were welcome there. Of that colony, Penn declared, "My God that has given it to me will, I believe, bless and make it the seed of a nation." In 1682, Penn wrote the Great Law of Pennsylvania, which served as the colony's first constitution. It established, quote, "laws as shall best preserve true Christian and civil liberty in opposition to all unchristian, licentious, and unjust practices, whereby God may have his due, Caesar his due, and the people their due." But while Penn clearly understood that good laws were necessary for good government, he also identified something even more critical, pointing out, "Governments like clocks go from the motion men give them. Wherefore, governments rather depend upon men than men upon governments. Let men be good, the government cannot be bad. If it be ill, they will cure it. But if men be bad, let the government be never so good, they will endeavor to warp and spoil it to their turn. I know some may say, let us have good laws, and no matter for the men that execute them. But let them consider that though good laws do well, good men do better. For good laws may want or lack good men, and be abolished or invaded by ill men. But good men will never want or lack good laws, nor suffer or allow ill ones." Penn realized that to have good government, the quality of the citizens and their leaders was more important than the quality of the laws, although both were necessary. He understood that rarely do bad leaders follow good laws, or good leaders enact bad ones. So while good civil laws were imperative, good character in a leader was even more essential. Penn once told Russian Tsar Peter the Great, quote, "If thou wouldst rule well, thou must rule for God, and to do that, thou must be ruled by him," end quote. Penn's position paralleled what the Bible set forth in Proverbs 29:2, the Living Bible, which declares, "When the godly are in authority, the people rejoice, but when the wicked are in power, they groan." The Good News Bible thoughtfully expresses it this way, "Show me a righteous ruler, and I will show you a happy people. Show me a wicked ruler, and I will show you a miserable people." Reflecting Penn's understanding of the importance of good leaders in his 1682 laws for the colony required all officials to possess faith in Jesus Christ. The revised Pennsylvania Charter of Privileges, 1701, slightly altered this qualification to, quote, profess to believe in Jesus Christ, the Savior of the world, end quote. Penn was a wise lawgiver, and as such is honored in the U.S. Capitol. His great wisdom was derived from that book of gospel statutes. 50 years after the founding of Pennsylvania, Georgia became the last of the original 13 colonies to be established. Now, several other colonies were founded during the intervening years between the early colonies in Georgia. In fact, during America's colonization period, at least 128 different covenants, compacts, charters, and constitutions were written. Of these, 86 came from American colonies and 42 from England for the colonists. The influence of Christianity appears in almost all of these documents. The Reverend Dr. Thomas Bray, a pastor in England and founder of England's Society for the Propagation of the Gospel in Foreign Parts, as well as the Society for Promoting Christian Knowledge, played a supporting role in starting a colony in Georgia. After his initial involvement in sending missionaries to America, he and his associates joined with General James Oglethorpe and founded Georgia in 1732. When the first group of 114 settlers arrived in 1733, they knelt in thanks to God, declaring, "Our end in leaving our native country was not to avoid want, God having given us plenty of temporal blessings, nor to gain the dung or dross of riches and honor, but singly this, to save our souls, to live holy to the glory of God." Groups of Moravians, that's Protestant Christians from the area that is now the Czech Republic, and other persecuted Christians and Jews soon followed the original settlers. The object of the devout Oglethorpe and others was to make Georgia a religious colony. Thus, when Savannah, the first city in the colony, was laid out, it was done with numerous religious activities and ceremonies, including prayer and a sermon. Oglethorpe invited the Reverends John and Charles Wesley and the Reverend George Whitefield to serve as chaplains in the colony, oversee Indian affairs, and build orphanages. Whitefield spent much time in Georgia, but his influence steadily grew well beyond its borders and, as we shall see, he had a dramatic impact upon all the colonies in the years leading up to the American War for Independence.